Hey everybody, and welcome to my last episode of TGIK. It is not the last episode of TGIK, and to kind of, to make that a little an easier transition, let's welcome Josh Rosso. Josh Rosso.
What's up?
He's over there.
Last episode as a VMware employee.
As
It's a
an
very
F-
important detail you just left out.
That's very true. Yeah, and I'm definitely looking forward to collaborating more. Like Josh and I have collaborated across a variety of companies at this point, and I imagine that there's no stopping us at this at this point. So, very exciting. We were actually just chuckling about the fact I was like, you know what, this might be a good trivia question. So I have this face mask. Can't really kind of see it very well, but I have this face mask that was made out of a T-shirt. Let's see if there's anybody in the audience who can spot what that T-shirt was about. So while we're
That's
doing,
a tough one.
yeah, I'll put it up there just one more time. There we go. Let me rotate it a little bit. And then we'll go and see how our audience is doing, see how you all are doing, see who signed up with us here. So we got Josh, obviously. He's going to be helping us out. We got George behind the scenes. He is always behind the scenes, making things better for everybody all the time. That's just who George Castro is. It's actually one of the things I absolutely love about the guy. We got David Michael signing in. We got Rory McCune from... He just wants me to try and say it one more time, because he's my good friend Rory, So,
Let's hear it, Duffie.
we got Rory McGoon from Log Oil Head in the Scottish Highlands. I bet you I've just completely slaughtered it, but we'll see how we do. We got Rex Roof. We got Tim Downey tuning in from Dublin, California, which is, I think, pretty awesome because we have some people from Dublin, Ireland also. We got Ayub from Morocco and Victor from New York City, U.S. Good to see you, Victor. And get ready for rain, because it's coming. And we got Paul from St. Louis, Missouri. And Justin from Raleigh, North Carolina. Oh, we got Martin Borgman saying hello from the Netherlands. And Reiko saying hello from Germany. Did I get your name right, Reiko? That's the way I've been saying it in my head. I wonder if it's actually correct. Timmy Carr, my man. Coming to hang out. Good to see you, moving into product management, leading the charge, man. I'm really excited for you. Glad to see that happen. Robert Kelty from Dublin, Ireland. Exactly. Sevi from saying good evening from Istanbul. Good to see you, Sevi, and Waleed. Good to see you, Waleed, and Lamadi. Always Lamadi. It's probably one of the constants in this experience for me, which has been great. Tim Downey saying hello. Oop, I lost my place. Rada saying hello from Scottsdale. And Angela from San Francisco, my good friend Angela Lewis. I can't wait to be on the other side of this madness so I can go and say, go spend some time with some friends in a public place where we don't feel like we're, all threats to each other.
Exactly.
Hashimoto, which is a great name, from St. Paul, Minnesota. Stay safe out there in Minnesota. Minnesota's a crazy town right now. It's not. I don't think it's as bad. Maybe it's not as bad in St. Paul. I don't know, but I know that from Ian's experience, Minneapolis is an interesting place right now. What else do we have? We got Joy saying happy Friday, friends. Good to see you, Joy, and Riv from Boston, and Bojanch saying hello to everybody, and Sevi. And Christoph from Dusseldorf, Germany, and Bjorn saying hello again, saying thank you, Bjorn, for everything. It's been a real pleasure. And Juka from Helsinki, Finland, and Sean. The list goes on. It's good to see all of you. You see Jason from Smoky Denver, and Marky saying Duffie, and Keith from Ireland as well. Today is a happy and a sad today. It's true. I am right there with it. I definitely feel both of those things. Mr. Vic Parker saying hello from the Windy City, and Rodolfo and everybody. Gosh, Morteza from Tehran and Shahar from Atlanta. It's good to see you all. And I'm glad you're here for my last TGIK, but it's not the last TGIK. So I just want to call that out explicitly. Because I think that, first of all, I want to say, I don't think I've ever seen a Twitter thread in my life that was so inherently positive. That blew my mind, right? When I announced that this was my last TGIK, And I think there were like 100 or 200 responses or something, all of which were very supportive and like tremendous. And so I wanted to say thank you to each of you that chimed in on that, and also just to the audience of TGIK. So thank you very, very much for all of this amazing journey. Like it's been a tremendous experience, and I've learned a lot, and I hope that everybody has learned a lot. Like that's the whole point of this whole thing. So thank you all so much for everything, and know that this is going to keep going. Like we have some great new speakers lined up. We have Paul Zarkowski. We have a few other folks that are looking at getting involved, and of course Josh. You've seen Josh many times. I'm hoping that we can pull Brian Lyles in more. I'm like, there's a bunch of other folks that are still here at VMware that will be happy to carry this torch forward. So there is that. Yes, it is my last one. What else? Here to celebrate you. Thank you, Taylor. And Rodolfo, that's a good question. Should we make that an audience question? Did anybody?
I think we should.
Did anybody guess?
No one got it yet. No.
Oh wow! I'll put it up again. Now that y'all are, now that I have your all attention, let's try.
Maybe a hint, Duffy. Do you want to say what company it's related to?
Well, I will say that this was a company that Josh and I worked at previously.
Great hint.
And it's not Red Hat. Although I can see how it would be confusing. I think that Josh and I are both contributors to this particular corner of Red Hat.
It's true.
Yes, but what is the product? The product shirt that this would have represented?
Someone just got it.
Ryan definitely knows. If Ryan didn't know, I don't even know what we're doing with our time. Yes. CoreOS Tectonic, Mr. Tim Downey, you got it.
That's it.
Fleet.
So on that too. Oh, Fleet! Wow. Yeah.
Take me back there.
Orchestrating System D. Gotta love it.
I mean, Fleet, Daemon sets, Fleet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Back in the day, before there was really good ways to bootstrap Cube, I worked with a couple customers to use Fleet to bootstrap the System D units to then run Kubernetes. But that was my only Fleet usage.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's kind of intense. I'm trying to think of the layers of abstraction there. My brain is kind of melting a little bit.
It was before the days where you would run the Cube components in containers commonly. You know what I mean? Most people were still running them as System D units.
Yeah.
But
I like it.
Yeah.
So let's make that an audience question. How many episodes have I hosted of TGIK? Now there are 130 episodes now, and I wonder how many of those I've hosted. And you get bonus points if you can come up with how many have been hosted by Josh or Chris Nova or Joe Beta or Brian Lyles. Like if you could do like a sort for like who hosted how many, that would be tremendous. I bet you that I don't know that I have surpassed Chris yet. Chris hosted quite a lot of them. But we'll see how it shakes out.
Yeah.
Ryan says he's still using Ignition. I wish that you were using more than just Ignition. I was using like 2 partition file system, like looking at it. Never mind. That's sorry. Wrong speech.
A and B.
Lamatti says parse the Git commits, but what you don't know is that I have committed notes for several episodes. I think what you need to look for is readme.md and the words hosted by. Mwahaha. All right. Nice. I think you'll dig it, Waleed. An API for the OS. All right, so let's go to the screen and facing guest and dig into what we got going on in the notes this week. Kubernetes 1.19 Accentuate the Positive is out. It has been released. It is exciting. It's actually like out the door and stuff. And there is a great blog post that is kicking off the informations about what is happening there. There is an upcoming, I think I talked about this last week, but there's an upcoming webinar where where you can tune in and check out the release leads and people that were involved in the release talking about the changes and what has come. It's been a really I feel like this one has taken some chewing, to be honest. Like I feel like the 119 has been a tough one to get completely out the week. It's like the by far the longest release cycle, lasting 20 weeks in total. It consists of 34 enhancements. 10 enhancements are moving to stable, and 15 are in beta, and 9 enhancements are in alpha. So that's, I mean, that right there says it all. You know, there's a lot of change in this one. So definitely check this one out. There's lots of good stuff in here. Volume monitoring, ingress goes to. I thought this day would never come. You know, to be honest, I think who was I talking to the other day that was like calling this out? There was like ingress graduates to general availability. Ingress has been in beta, I think, like maybe not the entire time, but when did it go to beta? It was like 1.
Oh, I have no idea.
1.8.
Yep.
Right, and then it was like beta forever. Like
I remember feeling the same way about deployments back in the day. Like, when are they ever going to get promoted? You know.
That's fair.
Yeah.
That's fair. Yeah.
But no, I hear you. Yeah. What's your favorite feature, Duffy, if anything?
I'm actually pretty excited to see. I'm pretty excited to see. What do you call it? The seccomp profiles go stable. This one here. That's actually pretty exciting, and I talked about that in my talk, in my KubeCon talk this year. Talking about seccomp profiles and how they're going to be a first-class thing inside of here. I'm always interested in seeing this kind of stuff. Limited node access to the API, which is kind of just furthering kind of the lockdown of like what a node can do with its own identity with relation to the Kube API server. That's always a good one. Improving the security of things is near and dear to my heart. Node topology manager is up. A new endpoint API. I think. What is your favorite one of the bunch? I'm actually really. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, I think it's the generic ephemeral volumes, although I haven't really looked at them that heavily. I think the notion is like attaching ephemeral storage that doesn't necessarily have to come from the host itself. I've just had a lot of issues where like ephemeral storage from the host gets eaten up, and then containers start occupying more disk on the host than you'd expect because they're doing bad things like putting massive log files onto the disk or something like that. So yeah, it'll be interesting. I'm stoked to play with that.
I was just in a thread earlier today where somebody was like, they were troubleshooting I/O problems. They had a high I/O weight, and they were trying to troubleshoot why. And we start getting into like the questions of like how and why and all this other stuff. And they're like, well, we have a single EFS volume, and I'm like,
I wonder. I'm there.
Okay, all right. like single EFS volume, and they're backing it, and it was as a backing store. And I'm like, but a backing store to what though? Like, I mean, like, yeah. Anyway, what can you do?
Yeah.
Yeah, Rich's write-up was awesome. Thank you very much for all of the kind words, and also, I thought it was a really good balanced view of how KubeCon 2020 went. It's the first virtual KubeCon that we've done, and I think that no matter what, there's going to be challenges to overcome with something like that. So definitely worth checking it out.
And we do have a link in the HackMD too if anyone wants to check it out.
Yeah, I actually probably should get back to the notes, to be honest. All right, so we'll peek behind the covers. Woo! All right. Okay, we got Tim Hawken asking about having a set of reserved system namespaces, which I think is actually kind of an interesting idea, and I really liked Chris Nova's input on this. Because to be fair, I don't think that it's too late to change these things, although I don't know where I can find that. In here somewhere, Chris jumped in with an idea. Yeah, there we go. I'd rather have just a property that defines the namespace scope as system or something similar, which I think might make a little more sense. But the idea being that, like, if you had a set of reserved names, could you treat them fundamentally differently? Or would it be better to have like a way to identify those names or to distinguish those namespaces in such a way that you could like maybe remove them from service discovery or do those sorts of things? And I think that would be neat. Like another API surface to certainly, think about how to control and those sorts of things, but it is interesting. Big announcement last week, I think earlier last week, is this Kubernetes.dev is now out. And so it really does. It's trying to. Its audience is really and folks who are contributing to Kubernetes. And understand that when we say contributing to Kubernetes, we're not talking about people who are contributing code necessarily. We're talking about anybody who is contributing to the ecosystem, right? I expect that I will continue to be a contributor to the Kubernetes ecosystem. I'll still be very much involved in what's happening in the community, and I plan on continuing to do so. And I imagine that's true of everyone on this stream right now, right? Like y'all are either your consumers or your people who are out there raising your voices about how things can go, or you're contributing code, or you're contributing documentation. And I respect each and every one of you for all of that stuff, right? So definitely, this is a very exciting site, and it's great to see that kind of brought out to the surface. And I know there's been a ton of work on the back end to make this happen. So if you want to contribute to this site, it's actually just as open source as you might expect. There's great ways to interact and to extend the resources that are here. Jump in, like both feet.
Duffie, I just want to echo what Paul Burt said in chat in all caps. You better keep contributing to Kubernetes.
Oh yeah, I'm not going anywhere. I'm excited. I'm not like my voice is like not y'all have not even remotely heard the last of me. Yeah, I mean you might not hear me much in September because I'm going to be taking some time off. I was actually just talking to Josh about this. Like I'm going to spend some time up at a hot springs at here in California that I really enjoy. I've been there a number of times, and usually I do this about once a year to kind of like try and ground myself and get my head in the game. I feel like this is a good time for that. So I'll be riding my motorcycle, getting out of town, going to sit in hot water for a couple days, and like just letting my brain reset a little bit. So I'm definitely looking forward to that. Oh wow, wait a minute. Oh, it came in with 1.8, but 1.1. But when was it sent to beta? Yeah, that's wild.
You're talking about Ingress?
Yeah. Sorry, I was responding to George's comment here.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm glad you were there for it, Steve. That was a tremendous co-host episode. What's hilarious was like I did a co-host episode with my friend Steve Wade, who lives in the UK. And just like with Josh here, it was like totally faultless. Like everything was like nice and smooth. The transitions were great. And then I did a co-host with Ian, and apparently like there's just so much happening in Minneapolis that was I had to reset the browser that was actually connecting me to Ian several times. It was kind of wild. Thank you so much for the grokking series. I'm glad you liked it. Mr. Daniel Mangum also calling out the SecComp stuff. Good to see you, Daniel. What else we got in the chat? Thank you, Ali. TGIK is in great hands. It has always been in great hands. It's awesome. Nice. Steve, we were at, just last week, I was at the Atlanta meetup, which is awesome because it was a virtual one this year, this last week, right? And so there were some tremendous presentations by Marky Jackson and by Steve Wade talking about GitOps and also about Spinnaker. And it was great because it was like a virtual meetup, and so they set it up as like a kind of a webinar thing, and then what they do is they just like open the webinar up so that everybody's a participant, right? So you all can chat, you can all kind of interact, but the presenter is the one responsible for what's on the screen. And I thought that was a great format for this, right? Because you can really handle that pretty well. And so good stuff. Honky Ian session as expected. Fair enough. All right. Back to the notes. What else do we got? Kubernetes.dev. We talked about it. We talked about Rich's wrap-up post. Definitely worth reading. Breaks it down by day. Lots of good stuff and lots of really good talks by a number of really amazing people. Like I thought that was really good stuff. And the other thing I like about Rich's voice and the way he expresses himself is that he's like kind of that that perfect balance of like really honest and really kind. Like he's not trying to dump on anything pretty much ever, but at the same time he's got really valid feedback about how things are working or not working, or whether they're and I like that about you, Rich. He's also got a podcast called the Cube Cuddle. Farhan Hassin Chaudhry has been working on a Kubernetes handbook. I've not seen this one. More people getting the voice out. Prerequisites. Familiar with JavaScript. You lost me. I'm kidding. Linux terminal. Got it. Familiarity with Docker. Might be an interesting one. Oh, I think it's because of they're basically developing a sample application. My goodness.
Yeah, there's a lot going on in there.
Yeah.
Looks like there's a lot of good content.
They're taking you all the way from like the app and all of the things down below, which is like a lot of really good content for sure. So definitely check that out. What Monzo learned about self-hosting Kubernetes and why they wouldn't do it again. Should I click on it, Josh?
Just do it.
I mean, you know something about self-hosting Kubernetes.
Never heard of it.
I don't know. I don't know them. No, I'm gonna.
Now, okay. Now we should clarify though.
That was a CoreOS joke.
Yeah, we were talking about BootCube, right? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
We're definitely talking about BootCube.
Yeah. And I think their framing is about not using a managed service, if I'm reading it correctly.
Why would that be called self-hosted Kubernetes? Early adopter.
Good question.
Yeah. At the time, Kubernetes was much more basic, virtually non-existent. Monzo's choice. Self-hosting on. Oh, I guess. All right. That's a different take. They're talking about why they manage Kubernetes on their own versus why not consume a Kubernetes platform that somebody else makes. See, that means a very different thing.
You went 3 layers lower on that one, for sure.
Woof. Yeah.
Yep.
That one got me. All right. I can see it. You know, this is actually kind of an interesting thing because there was another article I spent a lot of time with this week, like thinking about. Let's see, charity majors. This article, which really hit me, like charity is incredible. I'm a very vocal advocate of a lot of really amazing, important infrastructure things. And what Charity's calling out here is like in her experience, like where does she see the future of operations jobs? And this is fascinating because she calls out in this article that like one possible future is that like the real value in operations jobs is going to change, right? Like she calls out like the thing that we all know to be true, which is that like if you're working for a company and you're working on the infrastructure for that company, are you really focused on delivering the value of what that company is? If you're not working like say at AWS or Google or VMware, right? Like if you're not working for an infrastructure company and you're working on infrastructure, like you got to wonder, right? Like you're there to enable the delivery of value as it relates to those applications and things that represent the core, the core, what the company's actually there to accomplish, right? You're a very important part of that puzzle, but at the same time, like you're almost an impediment to it to some degree. And as we look forward a little bit, right, we see, okay, well, if we take that in stride and we think about it a little bit, right, we're thinking about the fact that like, the world has changed a lot, right? Like we have AWS, we got GCP, we got Oracle Cloud, we got all these different environments now. And the way that we consume infrastructure is also fundamentally different than it was 5-10 years ago. Right now we have an API between those things and ourselves. So the question now becomes like, if you're an operations team, is your job to glue the disparate parts together to make a platform rather than to invent them? And what does that look like? Right? Like, and I'm like, wow, this is like so on top of it, right? Like, yeah. Oh, sorry.
Totally agree.
Jingling coins. It's true. I should actually move. It's a puzzle. I should move it off. Yeah. I'm going to move it over there so I don't touch it anymore.
I just assume you're organizing your quarters while you're, doing TGIK.
I'm shuffling poker chips, like.
There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's super interesting.
Yeah, this is like definitely one of the ones that was I've been sitting with this week, thinking about, because I'm thinking about like what's next and what's my place in that, thinking about what's happening. So Thanos is now in incubation, which is a big step inside of the CNCF ecosystem. It means that it's moved from sandbox, it's seen enough adoption and interaction that it's actually it's graduated into an incubating phase. Same thing with Cortex. Both of these projects are related to the way that we aggregate metrics and information about applications. If you haven't heard of them, definitely check them out. You can think of like Thanos this is probably a totally inappropriate thing, but I would consider it like a Prometheus for Prometheuses to some degree. Mm-hmm. Like it's a way of aggregating, it's aggregating those things that you're watching on Prometheus at a higher level so that you can actually keep context over a larger surface rather than in greater detail over a smaller surface. So kind of an interesting thing. Do you want to talk about the hierarchical namespaces controller? Because I think this is something that's exciting to you.
Yeah, I'm excited about this one because I think it's going to be a really good TGIK. yeah, as Duffie had mentioned when we were first talking about it. So, yeah, namespaces not having a hierarchy or namespaces being flat has always been something that has caused a little bit of toil, right? Like, what's a good example of like where this gets weird? Secrets. Right? Mm-hmm. So we know that as we think about like, okay, how should we structure our namespaces? We have apps that run, and theoretically, one app can access or reference any secret in that namespace because like the kubelet is the one retrieving it and bringing it into the tempfs or whatever the flow is you're using. So like oftentimes it's like, okay, well, I want to delegate, this app its own kind of namespace, but also like I want to be able to inherit X, Y, and Z when I do that. Mm-hmm. So, elegantly and non-elegantly, I'll admit, I feel like I've solved this problem like 80 times with custom controllers and logic and putting some things in the admission control layer. So without giving too many opinions about it, it's super interesting. It solves a problem that I know for sure people have. The notion of like namespaces referencing namespaces, potentially referencing namespaces, I think there are some trade-offs there, like anything. So, I'll leave that maybe to a TGIK when we dive deep, but, I'm super interested to see how this thing plays out. For those who haven't seen it, I should mention, correct me if I'm wrong here, Duffie, but it didn't get put in the core. No. It's an extra controller you can deploy, and I think there's a kubectl plugin you can use to create them and interact with them.
Yeah, that's right. So. Yeah, and I thought that was actually kind of an interesting thing. Like, I remember, probably about a year ago now, there was a big push to understand how this new functionality would be introduced to Kubernetes over time, right? Like, and the idea was that we needed to stop introducing new functionality necessarily into core Kubernetes, but instead figure out a way to host it externally, leveraging an operator model, leveraging models like this, because in reality, like, with an operator or a CRD, you probably have enough to model whatever it is that you want to see happen, right? And if you're able to get kind of like the buy-in and like really see some success with that model, then it would be easier at that point to kind of like build the case that this totally belongs inside of Kubernetes. We should just figure out a way to bring that in. And so I think this is definitely one of the first projects I've seen that like seems to embrace that like 100% from the word go, right? Like, and so I think that's kind of interesting.
I think that's perfectly put. And Ivan, you mentioned something in chat about it being interesting around like namespace policy and RBAC, and I'm assuming you mean like in the context of inheritance, and I totally agree. I think at the bottom of the post, they even mentioned something about like looking for people to help out. I think they were maybe considering doing things like resource quota inheritance and stuff like that. So that all could be really, really interesting.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, so this is the role bindings. Yeah, it's a pretty interesting article, and it's up on the Kubernetes blog. You go to blog.kh.io, and I think it's like the third one down or something like that. So definitely check that out. But yeah, it'll be fun to watch you dig into that one in person. Like, it'll be a fun one. We got a 4-part series on Helm 3, which is exciting. Lots of big changes from Christopher Parker. Updating console the GitOps way. I'm like, whoo. mapping a directory of files into a container, umbrella charts, and standalone chart image, an alternative approach. This was actually a pretty interesting pattern for Helm 2 because you have things like dependencies working. And so I think what they might be exploring here is like how to actually bring that forward into Helm 3. Yeah, that's awesome. So if you're interested in Helm 3, definitely check that stuff out. Lots of good stuff happening there. I actually added this one because like I think pretty recently I was talking about RBAC in our stuff. And one of the things I thought was really interesting was there's a new project out by AppVia called Crane. And it's trying to provide like a dashboard for either a CLI or a UI for giving you sort of a risk report for the way that your RBAC might be configured. And I haven't actually explored this one, but I'm very interested to see if it solves that problem that I was looking at when we were exploring RBAC together a couple of episodes ago, which is that like there are certainly tools that let you express like, you know, what is my effective configuration, and there are tools that let you understand the mapping between a user and particular roles, but there aren't very many tools that like, you know, that you could use to validate a set of assumptions against, right? Or understand like how those things aggregate together in some really concise way, right? There's not a good visualization tool, as far as I'm aware, that really like just kind of checks all those boxes. If you want to hear more about that, definitely check out the episode a couple episodes ago when we dug into RBAC tooling. That was a fun episode. I wish I'd known about this then. This would have been a great addition to it. And then here we are. All right, so this episode, what we're going to cover is a very meta. We're going to be digging into like how to actually do a TGI case on your own, right? Because there's a lot of people in our audience that have incredible voices that I would love to hear more from. And I realized that with this latest thing we figured out with TGIK, like hosting a guest like Mr. Josh here, I figured it would be a good time to kind of like walk through how this works and work our way kind of like from the inception of an idea of what a TGIK episode would be like all the way through to the delivery of it. So let's dig in here.
Awesome.
So typically what we start with is we come up with an idea, and that idea could be like something that like this whole Crane thing that just came out might be fun to like, you know, reach out to the team behind Crane, the AppVia folks, and say, you know what, I'd love to do a TGIK episode on your thing. Would you be willing to jump in and help me out, you know, jump in and answer questions inside the chat or anything else like that? We could also focus on like a series like I was doing with Grok and Kubernetes, where I would pick, you know, some particular topic and explore that topic in some depth and really try to bring people with us, right? It's an educational thing, but it's also just a great opportunity for me to explore with you. And like, as an aside note, I think this is true for all of us at TGIK. One of the best things for me is that, and for all of us probably, is that I love the interaction, right? I love the ability to like pose a question. There've been a number of times I've done this where I've posed a question, or I'm like trying to troubleshoot something, or Joe is like trying to figure out how to, you know, manipulate the YAML to do the thing, or like, you know, interact with something, and inevitably there'll be somebody in the audience that's like, oh, it's this, and you're like, thank you, right? Like, because it's like that tremendous team effort. It always takes a village, and it's great to see such an incredibly healthy village that we have behind TGIK. So that's my side note. So I think that's tremendous. And then once you've picked your topic, right? Like say I wanted to do the Crane thing or whatever, then we typically go to unsplash.com because these are licensed free to use photos. And then I might look up, like if I was going to do Crane, I might look up some kind of Crane thing. And then, you know, like say, let's see, I kind of like the colors in this one. This is pretty. So let's go and download that thing. Save. And then once we have that going, then I know that Josh and I both use this tool. Oh. Control W. You want to use something that's going to give you the ability to manipulate images. And then what we've got is just, cancel. we've got a template that we work with, and that template is that one. And then we, and basically, you can see how simple this is, right? This is just text, and we have actually like grouped that text all together. And then we have this image up here, which kind of represents like where this is coming from. Obviously, we're all working for VMware right now, so that's where that's all coming from. And then it's to do with Kubernetes, and we basically came up with like I think Joe or Chris, one of the two of them came up with this image originally, and we all just been reusing it so that we have like a good, consistent UI for things. And then the neat thing about using something like Inkscape, or I don't know, what is the other apps that are out there? It's not just Inkscape. Do you know, Josh?
Illustrator, and you mean open source ones though?
I'm not particularly like on other
Yeah.
OSs. You know, when people aren't using what they should be using. Okay.
Yeah, I've been so indoctrinated in Inkscape that I've been using it forever. But I think Illustrator is probably the other big one. There might be some other good ones though. Chat will know. And GIMP, of course, yeah. I think GIMP is less focused on vector, right? It's more like a Photoshop equivalent. Correct me if I'm wrong, chat, but I'm pretty sure that's true. James says Affinity Designer. Never heard of that one.
That
Sounds fancy.
So then we just basically manipulate this, and we have a box that represents the shape of the image. And so typically I'll like use my control key to make sure that I'm scaling to a similar size as the backdrop. And then kind of pull that over a little bit. Whoop, Control Z. There we go. And then pull that up some. This one's a tough one. I might want to make this one bigger actually, so I can get more of the crane. So once we have that happening, object, flip horizontal. Once we have that basically kind of in frame the way you'd want it, and then we can actually just kind of collect stuff. So grab that guy, grab the text, use our pin to grab some other color from the image. And that is the magic, right? This is the graphic design show. This is how we do what we do.
Exactly.
And then, you know, I try to like pick a nice light color, but I love that there's this idea of, ooh, that's pretty. There's this idea of like color theory, and I also love that whole experience because it happens every time. There's this idea of color theory that if you like have, if you pick something from, if you are going to make a piece that you want to look like it is a complete piece, then you have to kind of reuse the colors inside of it, right? So that you're not like introducing a completely stark color family different than the rest. And that's why that whole color picker thing works so well. And the next thing we do is just grab the text, and we update that text right there with the number of the episode, 31. And then we just export it to the image size. Export PNG art, and then there's in the page description, it's basically 1280 by 720 with 72 pixels. And there we go. Excuse me. And then I usually just export it to the same location, and that way when I'm configuring OBS, it doesn't change. And so that's how we do that part of it. And this is a scalable vector graphic. And so that's how we do that bit. And the next thing we do is we go and we muck around with YouTube. So inside of YouTube, if you don't already have YouTube Studio, I think that like if you wanted to host things or whatever, you can actually do this pretty easily. I was just realizing I was actually watching the Whiskey Hater like on the company YouTube. My bad. Sorry. So I'll just switch to my own account here. So on your YouTube, you can make your own channel or whatever. There's lots of options. Inside of here, if you click on your create, and you can do go live. And inside of there, you have options, including this manage button. You can do a schedule a stream. You can actually reuse settings in this, and if you set these things up properly, we'll just do create new here. When you set these things up, there are a few things you want to adjust. You want to adjust when you're going to be recording your podcast, your video. You want to do all of those things. You want to set like what the description is and your file. This is actually where you can actually upload your thumbnail, so that the thumbnail part works. Open. No, it's not made for kids, what the age restriction is, all that stuff. And then once you have that configured, you'll hit create stream. Oh, testing for TGIK. And then go on back to YouTube. Try again. Finish. Sometimes things are finicky a little bit. So it's complaining about the stream key. So this stream key is actually going to be, we're going to use this and the URL here in a second when we're configuring OBS. And I'm going to show you, I'm going to walk you through that as well. But once you have this thing all configured up, then inside of your, if you look up here at the top bar, you're going to see the YouTube string that represents this particular video. And this is where we get into like kind of the next step for us, for TGIK. If I go to, what is it? It is TGIK.io live, or notes. Inside of HackMD, which is what we use for all of our notes, you can create a template for that as well, which is pretty handy. And I just create a new note from template, TGIK, use this template. And you can grab the TGIK notes and use that as your template if you want. But inside of here, inside of the piece here, we've actually embedded what the string will be for all of our, or for this particular video. And so we update this to point to our new string, and we populate those notes. George actually usually handles the population of notes. I usually kick it on also. I kind of work as a team to kind of make sure that we collect notes. We'll talk about that in a second as well. But this is actually how we kind of like host all of this stuff. Like this is where we put our notes and everything else like that. And then the last step of just kind of preparing everything, you've already got your channel, you've got your video scheduled, it's ready to go, you have your stream key, you can find your way to it, you have your notes templatized and brought up. One of the next pieces here that's important is Rebrandly, which is one of the things that we use to host links for things. And so we have purchased the TGIK.io domain. I think that was actually George that bought it, but one way or the other, it's owned. And we put TGIK.io, the root domain, behind Rebrandly, and then we can use this Rebrandly to make a new link and make our and then link that YouTube video. Right, so test.com. This will be our YouTube channel or whatever. And then the slash tag is where you get the short names for episodes, 120, 130, etc. And that is most of the heavy lifting in preparing for a show. Like those are the big four pieces, right? We have our tile image, we have the story that you're going to create, you have their tile image, you create the YouTube event and schedule it. You take some of that information from the YouTube event and you throw it into the notes. You then create a Rebrandly link for the actual episode that you're going to host. And then I have also starred a couple because there's a couple other like kind of keep it simple things. We have the TGIK notes, a link that we point to our HackMD episode notes. We update this every week. And then TGIK.io live is usually just a pointer toward whatever the most recent is. Oh, I've lost Josh. Hold on, Josh, where are you? Josh is gone. I'm still here. Can y'all hear me okay? Josh. One moment. Let me just check in with my man Josh here. Yo. I wonder if Josh's machine restarted or something.
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Oh, I can.
My window manager decided it didn't like OBS Ninja's share screen thing. So
Oh, dang.
I don't know if sharing my screen will be super wise during this session, but I should be stable going forward.
All
Fingers
right.
crossed. Cool.
All right. So that brings us to the next part of our experience here. We talked about how this works. Let's check this out and see how we're doing with the rest of the audience here. Bring out Inkscape, but Inkscape is sleeping. I love it. It should have been GIMP. You know, I actually really like Inkscape better because it gives me the ability to create an SVG, but that might just not be super necessary. I know that you could do it with GIMP for sure. HackMD is so fantastic, it's useful. So like with a scheduler, yes, totally. It takes me, now that we've done it a few times, like I would, gosh, I don't know, 10 minutes maybe? What do you think, Josh? Get ready for an episode?
Yeah, we've got it pretty dialed. I guess we should mention, and sorry if I was locked up when you said this, in our documentation folder of TGIK,
yes,
we have all these steps written down too. So if you ever want to check it out at your own pace, that's there. Kind of cool. But yeah, I think that's about right. Like 10 to 20, just depending on what you're putting together.
Yes, everything is in here. So we have a checklist. I'm terrible at checklists, but it does exist. And it basically talks about all the steps that we're talking about here. Post tweets. Make sure that you post a tweet about what you're going to do. And actually, I should update this. One of the things I should be doing is because now we have automation that will notice a new video and make sure that it gets announced and that sort of stuff. So this actually was only just recently added.
Hey everyone. Can you all hear me? My face might be a little messed up. Hey, how's it going? Yeah, so I didn't need OBS for this session. Let me see if I can fix my face real quick. But so I didn't install OBS on my laptop, which means that I don't have the theme. I don't have anything set up. So when Duffie's power went out, I installed OBS. And now I'm here. So it's great to see you all. Can you all hear my voice? Did someone say that you can only hear a clicking sound? I'm assuming you all can hear what I'm saying. Cool. Yeah, my chroma key's messed up. Okay. So great. All right, so maybe we can talk a little bit about OBS setup while my OBS is not set up, and we'll, fingers crossed, we're going to get Duffie back. Hopefully once his power comes on, we'll be set. But let me, oh, my resolution. Okay, cool, I should be able to fix that. Let me just ping in Slack, our internal Slack. If you come back, let me know so I can stop streaming. All right, we're just going to use positivity here. Duffie's power is going to come back, and then we're gonna be able to link him back up. But until then, let's dive a little bit into some of the the OBS stuff. Yeah, Alex, it was a heck of a send off, wasn't it? Okay, we didn't kick Duffie out or fire him or anything. Just so that you know, I know it's very weird when people just disappear like that. But yeah, we'll hopefully get him back pretty soon. Okay, cool. So I'm just going to pull up the TGIK notes again here. All right. So some people are saying they had to reset their browser to get their settings back, or the stream back. So hopefully that works okay. Yeah, all my settings might be a little bit weird just because, like I said, it's not configured. Okay, cool. Yeah, no, Savvy, I did not close his account by any means. I think it's just a power outage. All right, so I'm just gonna add into oh, okay, how's that? I think I might have brought my audio back. Let me know. Let me know if you can hear me. We'll do this live, everybody. We got this. Audio back. Great. Okay, cool. All right, so now what I'm doing, it's kind of hilarious. Like I'm setting up the OBS scene because I want to show you all how to set up the OBS scenes, but I can't show you OBS until I have my screen configured to show you, if that resonates. Okay, so video window capture. Cool. All right, let me add in. Let's see if we can just get the browser going. That'll be a big win, huh? Episode 130. Look at that. Can y'all see my browser? I think so, yeah? Woo. All right. Hey, yeah, look at that. All right. And what we'll go ahead and do here, I'm just going to duplicate this scene so I can give you all a shot of OBS as well, because that's probably where we'll go next. And, okay, lovely. So you're going to lose my window for a second here, everyone. And I need to bring my camera up one layer. There we are. Okay, and then I'm just gonna share OBS and then we'll try to get started. So window capture, OBS. Okay, OBS here. Oh boy. All right. Are you all getting OBS Inception now? Like truly seeing me many, many times with my OBS window? I'm guessing so. Don't get too dizzy now, okay? Let's see here. Okay, wow. That's a lot of OBS right there. Okay. So let's start with the window. I think we've set a little bit of a foundation, which is good. Oh, it's so hilarious. It's so unplanned. It's like all the variables came together today. I used the computer that's not set up for OBS. My window manager froze. Duffie's power went out. But hey, that's the beauty of TGIK, right? The best parts of TGIK are when things break and fail miserably, right? So let's talk a little bit about some OBS stuff. Okay. So Duffie was talking a bit about how we set up the title cards. I think in chat, let me know, because when all this chaos happened, I might have lost him earlier or later than y'all did. But I think he was just mentioning like the rebrandly links that we were setting up. Does that sound right? Or did we leave off on something else? Oh, Josh, check Slack. Cool. Yeah, George, I think I'm good. If that's what you were asking. You were just checking in, yeah? Oh, you put up a link for your feed. Oh, we were visiting the GitHub repo. Okay, cool. Great. Let's start there then. Okay. GitHub, VMware Tanzu, TGIK. Okay. So, I think as Duff was putting it, and sorry if this is repetitive, everyone, but we'll get into some good stuff with OBS here in just a second. A lot of the stuff that we're going to be showing y'all. Oh, it's Duffie in the chat. See, y'all are under VMware Cloud Native Apps. I thought I was talking to George. Okay, cool. So here we are. We're talking about the TGIK repo. And a lot of the stuff that Duffie's been showing you, just to call it out, and I think he mentioned it, we have a checklist we go through every week. And then even those steps he was showing you with like Inkscape and all that good stuff, we got all of those documented and kind of pulled through. I think the biggest thing with TGIK that's been super helpful is having, it might be obvious, but a bit of a repeatable process, because when I come in the next week after a bunch of context changing, I always forget what I need to do. So how we set it up in YouTube, how we line up all the items, get it scheduled, it's all in there. Pretty cool stuff. So let's take it a step further and talk a little bit about OBS. How do we set up OBS itself? Now, inside of the TGIK repo, all right, we have got an OBS config folder that we use with some profiles and some scenes set up inside of it. So the reason that the window you're seeing right now is missing chat, although I know all of you are seeing chat in the YouTube interface, right? So the reason I'm missing the YouTube interface, the YouTube chat interface, the reason I'm missing all these bits is that I don't have the right scene imported. So I'm sorry, I'm getting pinged 1,000 times by everyone in Slack. I'm trying to figure out what people are trying to tell me here. Let me just double check, make sure Duffie's not back online. Okay, threads. Okay, Slack. Wrong thread. Okay, all right. VMware folks who are pinging me in Slack, I hope I'm not missing anything really important. Hear your pings, but I can't quite follow the thread you're talking about. So, all right. So the scenes in the profiles that we've got inside of here are all in GitHub. And what we'll do is we'll kind of talk about how they're set up and look a little bit into OBS and how we configure it. So let's try OBS Inception again. So brace yourself, everyone. It might look a little bit crazy here again. Let's see. And I will just do this real quick. There I am many times again. So one more time. And then I think if whoa. Okay. Let's see if I get rid of that. Okay. So if y'all ignore the chaos that is the OBS Inception here, we'll talk a little bit about how some of these scenes and sources and all that good stuff are set up. So inside of OBS, right, we've got these two different things that we set up. We've got the scenes themselves that we kind of switch between. So y'all know when Duffie goes to a titles card, right, a title card, the graphic itself, right, that's a scene. And then when we swap through and go to sharing a browser window, or maybe Duffie, in his case, he'll just share his entire desktop, right? These are all things that we kind of flip through. So basically, let me just check something here real quick. All right. Oh, cool. Duffie's back online. All right, everyone. So we'll pause our little OBS journey. We've talked about scenes and we've talked about sources at this point. So I'm going to stop streaming real quick. And then I'll shoot over to Duffie's page here. Give me just a sec. Okay, everybody, I'm back again. Duffie's internet, or his power did not come back on. It was a false flag. Sorry about that one. So Duffie, if you're in chat, I'm trying to understand, do you want me to add you? Are you saying you want me to add you to my current OBS session through OBS Ninja? I'm trying to grok what the ask is. Maybe shoot it in the chat inside of, I can add you to the source. Okay. So we're going to see if we can add Duffie to the source here. Okay. Let's give this a shot. So we're back into crazy mode, and we're going to see if we can get Duffie in here. And what I'm going to do is I am going to add, and correct me if I'm wrong, Duffie, but I think I add you to a Linux browser source, if that sounds right. Let's see if I can get Duffie back in here. Add me as a source if you want. So let's see if it's a Linux browser source. Go ahead and ping me, Duff, if I got the source type wrong. All right, so in my source types here, I'm gonna choose add a browser. Perfect. So we'll do a Linux browser. We're gonna call this Duffie, please come back. You guys, y'all might not be able to see this window that just popped up. Duffie, please come back. Okay, and then we'll hit OK. And then the URL will be that. All right, and I'm gonna copy you over real quick, Duff. And paste it in. All right, Duffie, so I've got you in as a source in the browser, but it is black. I'm not seeing Duffie for some reason. Yeah, I did actually add a browser, Duffie. I did a Linux browser. Let's see here. Try it one more time just to make sure. So I hit add in sources. I went to Linux browser. And then I put in the Ninja URL that you shared with me in Slack. The chat can't see this right now, but the Slack. And I pasted that in as the URL. I hit OK. And I've just got a black box, unfortunately. Oh, David, thanks for the comment about disabling OBS preview. That's a great a great point. I'll do that if I flip back over to my OBS screen. Yeah, sorry, Duff. It might be something on my end. I mean, like I said, I literally, when you dropped, I installed OBS. So like it could be configuration on my end, although it is just like a raw fresh install of OBS. So not 100% sure. Yeah. All right. So I'll tell you what. What do you think about this, chat? TGIK. Let's do this. We'll wrap up a little bit about kind of the OBS setup, okay? And if we get lucky and Duffie's power comes back, we'll grab him in. And if we don't get lucky after we talk a little bit about OBS, we will forego this session and bring Duffie back in. How's that sound? I mean, here's the positive thing to think about. We get to see Duffie again, somewhat soon. Maybe when he decompresses a bit or whatever works best with his schedule. But we'll go there next. How's that sound? Sound good? Let's give it a shot. All right. Cool. So I'm going to disable preview on my end, just like you said, David, and see if I can prevent inception. All right, chat. So verify with me here. I think you can see my OBS window this time, but this time without as much crazy inception, right? Does that look good? All right. Good deal. Good deal. Okay. In fact, what I'll maybe do, just to make this a bit easier, let me, scale is out of the window. Okay, yeah, give me just a sec here. I'm gonna flip preview back on. Hello, everyone. I'm gonna go ahead and configure one more thing with OBS to make this a little bit less painful. Yeah, I figured y'all wouldn't see the OBS menu right now. Just a sec here. I am just going to set up a simple share in the corner of my desktop because this whole sharing a window thing is challenging. At least, I don't know if this is just true for X window managers, but like the pop-ups and stuff have different window IDs. So when it pulls it up, it won't see like pop-ups and different things like that, which is what I want to show you. So in this case, I just got to set it up to share like my entire desktop and not try to get too fancy with it. So I'm going to do something called a screen capture. All right, and there is my entire window. Okay, little bit, let's see how this shapes up. Okay, that's good. It's like the corner of my window. All right, we're doing this. We're gonna figure this out. So it's the corner of my window, and then if I put the browser window up here as an example, I need to bring myself back up front, I think. Okay. There I am. Y'all can see me, yeah? Then if I just scale this out a little bit. All right, so any window that I put up here now, I should be able to show y'all, which should make it a little bit simpler. And let me just reposition chat. Okay. All right. Now, here's my question for y'all. If I bring this over here, can you see the OBS window? Give me just a sec. I'm going to disable preview, bring it on over. All right, chat. So I got no real preview in place, but I'm hoping now when I right click in things and I hit the menu bar, I'm guessing y'all can see these menu items. Give me a quick yes in chat if that's the case. I think that should be good. Sweet. Okay, we're figuring it out. All right, good deal. You see the items. Good deal. Okay, so what do we got going on here? So as I'd mentioned, just to kind of bring it back and set context again, inside of the TGIK repo, this is where we keep our OBS configs. Now, these OBS configs are things, and it's been a little while since I've looked at this in OBS, but let's see if we can check it out. We haven't, for a TGIK, we haven't seen enough terminal yet, so let's open up a terminal real quick. If I look into, is it just OBS or is it .config? Is it? There it is. Yep. So in .config in most systems, OBS Studio, you're going to have a couple different folders inside of here. All right. And one of those is under, in the case of basic. I don't know what basic refers to. I wonder if you can arbitrarily put a different thing here, but I usually keep everything under basic. And it's going to save things in profiles and scenes. Okay. So profile and, oops, got to go back. Profiles and scenes, right? So in my case, you can pretty much see that I've got nothing going on here, right? Because brand new OBS install, we're flying by our seats here, we've basically got blank things. But effectively, going back to our window for TGIK, same idea. We can go into profile for TGIK. We'll see some of the JSON configuration, like what the encoder should be set at. Right now, I think I'm running like a weird bit rate and stuff like that. And then for scenes, it's got all of probably the more important things, frankly, around how we switch between these different scenes. So when I was talking to you about OBS and saying like, okay, so you got these things. They're called scenes. They're called sources inside of the scenes, right? These are the things in the bottom left-hand corner here. We've got all of these inside of this JSON file effectively. So you can see some of the different scenes, like when Duff goes to the picture, the graphic we showed you how to make, that's our title card scene. And then inside of that scene, there's a bunch of sources, right? So this is the array of sources behind the scenes that have all the settings about the camera, the microphone, and all that good stuff. So, you know, I mean, being the YAML/JSON lovers that we are in the Kubernetes world, OBS isn't too different. You know, it's just got a configuration file, shoots up all the JSON, all that good stuff, and then we can kind of pull those different pieces together. All right. So going back to OBS itself, in my case, I've got the preview disabled, but if I go over and I add a scene in, there's a couple common ones that we typically have going on in OBS. One of those is actually the chat window. All right. So you might wonder like, oh, how does TGIK typically do like the whole chat kind of scrolling thing, right, in the sidebar? So we actually use the browser component here. And if you're running on a different OS, I think it might just say browser instead of Linux browser. But clicking on this thing, it'll say, hey, what kind of information do you want to put in here as far as like a name goes? And basically it will ask us for a URL. So getting the chat window into OBS it's actually kind of cool and kind of simple. So here's a chat window. Here you all are. Hey, everyone. Right? And effectively what we do when we bring this window in for chat is we're just grabbing the URL of the chat window itself, right? And bringing this into the OBS URL, pasting it in, and this effectively gives us the chat UI. So you can put in some custom CSS for TGIK. We keep it real simple. We like just black out the UI and just have y'all's chat messages coming in and all that good stuff. So just hit OK here. Now, I'll see if I can make this not too crazy when I enable preview. I think, okay, yeah. So this box that you see right here is the chat window. Now, I think in Linux, and this is, again, my fault for not being on my normal computer. I think in Linux, you have to install a browser plugin, or in like more recent versions of OBS, there's a browser plugin. So the reason you're seeing a kind of blank transparent window here is because my browser's not rendering. But normally this would look like the chat window inside of TGIK. Okay, so we'll keep that there for now. Now, another really common thing, if we disable preview here, right, is we'll bring in a graphic of some sort, right? So let's bring in the title card. So we'll do an image. We'll call this title card. All right. And let's make sure I have the, oops, make sure I still have the chat open here. There we go. Okay. So we'll bring in an image. In this case, if I go to TGIK in the folder, I'm sure we've probably got some episodes with images. Now, unfortunately, 130, it looks like we're a couple behind. We'll have to update our repo, or I need to pull down, one of the two. But inside of our repos, we'll typically commit an image file. So let's see if I can find one that has an image inside of it. No, usually we do. Huh. Maybe I'm wrong. No, this one has an image. Okay, let's go back to episode 7. So I'll choose 007 inside of the image, and it'll bring up the typical TGIK image. Now, this is obviously a much older one before we were VMware, so this has the good old Heptio branding. I wonder if from the typewriter, if y'all can tell what the episode is. So if I just hit OK here and enable the preview one more time, you'll get the inception of me again, but that's all right. And basically, this is kind of the title card that we would use. So underneath the chat window or wherever we kind of put it in the UI, we'll just kind of position that around. Now, the one cool thing about OBS is that these artifacts that we're putting in place, right, they can be referenced throughout multiple scenes. And we obviously use this quite a bit with OBS. The notion being, if you see me in my camera right here, why have completely separate configurations and input sources configured when in reality we just want to kind of replicate this reference? Okay, so as an example here, I'm going to go and duplicate this this scene for a moment, I suppose, the term scene. All right, and I will call this let's call it scene 2. All right. All right, so now we got scene 2. You can see all the things. Now, when I duplicated the scene, what did it do? Well, it created the new scene. So this could be like when Duffie shares his desktop, or maybe when he shares, the title card, or just his face when him and I were kind of sitting side by side, right? And it basically pulled over references to all of these different items, okay, which is really nice. So like if I suddenly realized, oh my gosh, the title card, which let's make it a little bit bigger here. The title card that I've got here was the wrong image. It was the wrong graphic, anything like that. I can just come into the title card again and I can change it out. So let's go to, let's go to episode 17 as an example, right? And save it up. And since this is a reference in this scene, okay, if I go back to term, which was my original scene, you'll now notice that while the positioning and the sizing can be unique, the graphic has effectively stayed the same throughout, right? Because we've got a reference going between each scene here. So that's really helpful when we're setting up the composition, right? We can set up the YouTube chat window like I showed you, and then we can reference it throughout all the scenes. I'll disable preview for a second. Maybe it might be a little less chaotic. So we can set up the, and actually, you know what I should do? I should bring preview out into a dedicated window. That would have been smart. So windowed projector preview. So much better. Okay. Little OBS pro tip. I wish I had thought of it. So this whole kind of chaos of you viewing me through viewing me through viewing me, one cool thing you can do in OBS, especially if you have a second monitor when you're doing one of these live shows, is right click and do the windowed projector. And it actually opens up a pop-up. That's what this is right here, right? That I can position into a different monitor so I can still control OBS and do things and talk to y'all about it. But I'm no longer, you're no longer looking at me replicated many times. That's a pretty cool one. Very, very sweet. So yeah, if you do check that out, it's just right click windowed projector and it will open up a separate window here. Pretty cool. Yeah, Paul, I agree. I didn't know about that. Well, I mean, I had used it before, but I'd forgotten about it till just now. So, all right, now we're in a little bit of a better state here. So let's see if we can bring all these pieces together and get everything kind of configured. Okay. So, like I had mentioned, we've got the title card, which you've got here. If I switch scenes, like to scene 2, I still have references to all the sources. And this is one of the really, really powerful things of OBS is to not do, just like in programming, right? It's like references and pointers relative to copying values. So we have this reference, we can change the underlying value, and then everything that references it is automatically updated. Pretty cool. And then what we basically do when we are effectively sharing our screens and things like that, Duffie and I actually have a bit of a different style here. I can't remember what Joe does. I want to say, and if Joe's in chat, he can tell me that I'm totally wrong. I think what Joe does is he maybe shares like a portion of his monitor and then just like sizes windows into the portion of the monitor. I'm not really sure. I know Duffie, he'll change his overall screen resolution to make it fit, given that the sides cut off with his face in the chat. And then I do something slightly different than those two options. Particularly, I'll go in and actually share specific windows per scene, which might sound a little onerous, but I kind of like it because I can control like terminal, browser, and kind of keep it really clean. And I actually, when I do TGIK, don't use multiple monitors. So by sharing specific windows, I can keep chat up, I can keep Slack up. Obviously today that wasn't really effective, but I can keep all these things up and switch between the apps by effectively switching between the scenes. So let's try to bring this all concretely together. What am I talking about exactly? So one approach, we can go in here and we can add in the screen capture, which in this case is going to be, the title card's in the way. Let's go back to the one with a little bit less chaotic of a title card. Yeah, cancel out of that, go to term. It's a little bit better. Okay. So I will add in a screen capture here. All right. And we'll call this Josh's desktop, right? And then I'll hit OK. All right. And then you'll basically see the properties for my desktop in here. Now, you've probably lost my face, and that's because Josh's desktop has gone to the top of the sources. All right. Now, what OBS will basically do, you can actually see here that I have a widescreen monitor, right? So it's like the dimensions are way too big for most YouTube videos, which would probably be something like 1920 by 1080, unless you're pushing 4K resolution video. So we've got this in here. All the properties are set up, and basically, when I share my desktop, I'll be able to kind of frame it and cut it out. So like I was talking about with an approach that I think Joe takes, is if I just hit OK here, it's basically going to put my desktop in the very top left. All right, so I'll just hit OK. And I'll just for a moment here enable preview. We'll make it go away in a second. But basically, you can see that the corner of my desktop is being shared, which works pretty well. So the notion here is as long as the window is sized right, if I just pop it in the top left corner, or if I use a keyboard shortcut, that's effectively what I'd be sharing with y'all. So I can have OBS open, I can switch to my terminal, right? And I'll just be able to switch back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. All right, so let's disable the preview real quick. All right. And let me check chat as I'm talking here. So all right. Yeah, we'll miss you, Duffie. Thanks so much for all the awesome freaking stuff you do for the community. I can't stress it enough. We will seek redemption in this episode, no question, and have you back and be sure that we do this episode the right way, the way we intended. Thanks so much, Duffie. Yeah, and Keith, you asked why using OBS Ninja over regular OBS. That's a great question, Keith. What we're using OBS Ninja for today is specifically the feature set of dual hosting. So what was happening before the crazy power outage was Duffie was streaming through OBS to YouTube. And effectively what happened with OBS Ninja, let me see if I can pull it up here so y'all can see it. Inside of OBS Ninja, Duffie was able to set up a group, basically. I think they call it a group. I'm pretty darn new to OBS Ninja, so disclaimer if I get something wrong here. He sets up a group. And then basically there's the ability for people to join that room based on a password that he has. So what's cool about that setup and why my OBS setup was so ill-prepared for this episode is because all I had to do is hop on my laptop, go to the URL he provided me through OBS Ninja via adding my camera here. And basically what would happen then is I was streaming through OBS Ninja. And Duffie could take my URL, the URL that OBS Ninja gave us, and he could actually add me into OBS. So that's how it was all coming together, right? So if I go back to OBS, basically, it's really no crazy magic here. Duffie had the scene set up with all the stuff, and he was like, okay, I'm going to add Josh to the enchanted forest, right? That forest background he has. So what he did is he went in and he opened up a browser. Where is it at? Linux browser. There you are. And he could say, I wish I could link up Duffie right now, but I'll just say Duffie. And then inside of the URL here, he could just add me in through the OBS Ninja link. So it's pretty cool. So again, architecturally, I might have this slightly off, but the flow is roughly that I go into OBS Ninja and add my camera source, and then I'm streaming all through my browser. I don't even have OBS open. Duffie, the master OBS controller in this case, goes into his OBS setup and adds my URL that's being linked out from OBS Ninja. And then boom, my input source just shows up on his screen. He alters the little chroma key for my green screen right here. And I'm just sitting right next to him all of a sudden. So when he was working with Ian, their setup was basically that same with all the others that we've kind of hooked up, like Steve and all that good stuff. So it's pretty cool. Yeah, it's a really sweet feature. Okay, so the last thing that I just wanted to talk to y'all about, and then we'll kind of wrap up and whoa, sorry if that got loud. We'll kind of wrap up and wish Duffie one more little farewell here if he's still in chat. Is sharing kind of a screen level view, right? So as I had mentioned, one of the things that I do is I'll set up a scene for every single screen that I have. And in my flow, and maybe this makes it a little bit too complex, what I do is set up a key binding on my computer that makes the window active in my window manager. So think about a command like if you're on a Mac, command, in my case, I use home row like Vim keys. I'll use Command J. And for me, Command J brings up my terminal window. Okay. So since I'm sharing my desktop here, let's try this. So on my keyboard, I hit Command J, and then boom, my terminal window becomes present. All right. So on Linux, there's a really cool tool called WMCTRL, window control, that you can do this with. And it brings it to focus. Now, OBS also lets you put in key bindings. So one kind of cool setup that you can do is you can say, hey, OBS, when you see Command J being hit or Windows key J being hit, it will switch you to the scene of your app, and also the whatever you're using, be it like Automator on Mac or a script on Linux, can trigger and make the window active, right? So you're bringing the window to your forefront on your computer and telling OBS to share that scene. So that's kind of the flow that I usually take, and just to kind of walk you through what this typically looks like. Let's go into go into some random window. So here's my Bluetooth, my Bluetooth window. Yeah, Keith, and you said, guess this is where the Stream Deck really comes in on its own. Totally. And there's some ways to run the Stream Deck on Linux. It's funny. I actually do own a Stream Deck. I think it is super freaking cool. I actually don't use it though. And the only reason is because I actually just prefer to stay on my keyboard. So since Command or Windows key J does the same thing as hitting the Stream Deck button, it's less context switching for me, if that makes sense. I know it sounds probably super silly, but like it's less context switching. I just hit Windows J and boom, it comes up, and all that good stuff. So you can get something really cool like a Stream Deck. You can totally still do this with your own computer. So inside of OBS, here's what we'll do. We'll hit the add button and we'll go to window capture. So this was ideally going to capture an application window. So this scene, let's actually even rename it. We'll rename the scene, we'll rename it Bluetooth. Since it's a little weird to share your Bluetooth window in TGIK, but let's roll with it. So we've got Bluetooth in place. We go to add sources, right? We do a window capture. All right. And then inside of here for window capture, we'll say Bluetooth. All right. And hit OK. And then it's basically going to say, hey, I know about a bunch of windows in the X window system. What window do you want to share here, right? So I'll choose Bluetooth devices. And just like that, I am sharing the Bluetooth window itself rather than my entire desktop. Now, again, I'd say it adds a little bit of complexity. So it's kind of one of those trade-offs to think about. Like right now on my screen, you can't really tell, but I actually have the Bluetooth window behind a bunch of other windows. So I can't see the Bluetooth window right now, right? But y'all are seeing my Bluetooth window, right? So that's because I'm going through my window manager and actually sharing that particular window. Now, I'll bring my my Bluetooth thing up to front here so I can see it. So now my cursor is over top of it, as you can see. And the one downside to window capture, I don't know if this is a Linux thing with the window manager that I use. Maybe Mac people, if you've ever tried this, you could chime in and chat. But the only downside to this approach for me, I guess there's two. One is that it's a little bit more complex. And you've probably seen me in TGIK. I mess this up sometimes. I'll click a window to make it active, and I'll forget to change the scene for y'all. So I'll be telling you like, oh yeah, this thing in the YAML file, like look at this field and look at that field. And in chat, you'll all be like, Josh, we cannot see your screen, you know? And that's definitely one of the risks you have to take on by doing like a scene per window share, is actually remembering what the heck you've got active, right? So for me, mapping the hotkeys pretty much solves that problem, but it's still a mistake that you can make, because unless you explicitly change the scene, the audience aren't going to see what you're seeing. The second trade-off that can be kind of big is, at least with how it works on Linux, or I shouldn't even say Linux, it's not a Linux thing, but in the X window system, when I right click, so right now I'm going to right click in this screen, my menu is up, but it treats that as a separate window ID, at least to how I understand it, and you're not seeing it. So right now I have a menu propped up, y'all can't see it at all. At least I'm pretty sure you can't see it. If I go up to the menu bar up here and I click on like view or devices or adapter, obviously thinking you're probably not seeing it, right? So that's one of the big trade-offs. Like if I had, I'm trying to give you a more TGIK example, like maybe I had actually I don't know how it would work in VS Code. IntelliJ, let's use IntelliJ since I know that's a Java Swing app. As autocomplete windows came up and things like that, you wouldn't see it. So, you know, those in-app window features, when they pop up, they wouldn't show, which is kind of a bummer. So yeah. Yeah, Keith, everything is better with Bluetooth. It's true. It's true. Yeah, Robert, I totally agree. Duffie is a total legend. Yeah, he's got a place to go everywhere he goes, or a place to stay everywhere he goes. Totally agree. Cool. So this was a lot of random stuff kind of thrown together. sorry that this was so chaotic, but we micro recovered. We kind of fell back and stood back up again. Hopefully this gives you an idea of kind of some of the stuff that we do with TGIK. I think the really big thing, if Duffie was here to speak to it, that I think he would share the sentiment, is the thing we want to get across is like, it's not, how do I put it? It might seem like there's a lot of stuff that goes into setting things like TGIK up, right? It might seem like there's a bunch of stuff on the YouTube scheduling side, and then there's these graphics we create, and then like, how are we streaming all this different stuff? And I don't want to dismiss the fact that it's effort. It totally is, and it takes understanding and learning. I'm not trying to discount the fact that there is some ramp up, but you know, everyone in the TGIK community, y'all have so much awesome insight about so many cool things, right? Every time we do one of these episodes, y'all are like half the time telling us where we're messing up because you see something or you have some background about something you've done in the real world, and that's so cool. So the biggest thing we want to share with TGIK and really wanted to get across with this episode is that don't be too intimidated by all the moving parts. And we hope, as much as it's interesting to you, right? Not to say that you have to do things exactly like TGIK, but we've got a lot of the steps and a lot of the things that we've done and set up and learned all documented. And maybe if you're trying to get off the ground and set up your own stream and teach us a bunch of really cool stuff, this can help you out a little bit. You can go into our docs, you can see kind of our process and flow for how we set everything up. And while it might seem like a lot, when push comes to shove, you know, now that we're 100-something episodes deep, it takes like 10 minutes to set up an episode, like Duffie said. So don't get too intimidated by this. You know, if it's something you're thinking about doing, and I hope I speak adequately for Duffie too, like we really encourage you to try stuff like this out. It's super cool. We love learning from y'all in TGIK, and we definitely encourage anybody who is interested in testing this stuff out to try it as well, because it's not as crazy as it might seem from an outsider perspective. So with that, I just want to say one more time for those of you who are still with us, and if you want to say something to Duff in chat, if you haven't already, feel free. We'll make sure to have him read the chat messages. But Duffie, if you watch this episode again, thanks so much. You know, even speaking outside of VMware, working with you at CoreOS, at Heptio, at VMware, like the amount I've learned from you and just the amazingness that I think all of the folks that are listening to this, could speak to as far as the things we've learned from you, how open you are to having a beginner's mindset around stuff. We really appreciate it, man. It's been so killer having you as part of this community. We can't wait to see what you continue to do in the Kubernetes community, right? We can't wait to see the awesome contributions, podcasts, all that good stuff. So, I think we're going to see even more of Duffie after he gets to decompress and kind of get his feet back under him again. But thanks so much, Duff. If you see this, chat speaks for itself. You're so awesome. We really appreciate all the work you do. Chat in the TGIK community. The great thing about this is I can install OBS on my computer when things fail, and y'all are supportive from beginning to end, even if we have to alter course significantly. So everyone in the TGIK community, thank you so much for all your support. I hope you're excited with where we're headed. We have ideas about potential new series we're going to do. We want to keep this kind of co-presenter thing going, so bringing folks like Duffie and Steve and Ian in the future. Can't wait for it. So this is not the end. This is the beginning of a lot of freaking cool stuff, y'all. So I hope you're as excited as we are. And with that, I think we're going to end it. Thanks so much, everyone. We'll follow up on this episode, maybe with a little bit more detail on things we wish we would have covered had we not had a power outage. But hope y'all have an awesome weekend this weekend. Take some time off, and we will see you in a future Friday TGIK. All right, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us today. Take it easy. We'll catch you very soon. Later.